This is Geeks Unleashed, episode 33.
But there was no body.
There's no body. If there's no body, then
there's no death.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 33. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jasmin.
Each week we cover the news of the week and we pick a couple of things to review that caught our fancy in TV, comics, movies, and games. This week's reviews are the season 2 premiere of Batwoman on the CW and the season premiere of Walker, also on the CW.
And spoiler warning, this is a review show. So if you have not had a chance to watch Batwoman or Walker, you might want to pause this and come back later. And then at the very end of the episode, we'll give you a couple of recommendations of our own.
Crazy week this week.
I think it's been a very busy week for everyone. But
23 days in to this year.
Yeah. Not off to a good start, 2021. You were supposed to give us a different perspective than 2020 did.
I heard rumors on the 1st of January COVID was going to disappear.
Apparently COVID didn't get that memo, though. So cancellations have already started. If you thought that this summer was going to be the summer of everybody going back to the movie theater, I am terribly sorry to disappoint you, but it doesn't look like that is going to happen. There have been a bajillion and a half, it feels like, delays or cancellations completely. So first up, the Sony upcoming Marvel film Morbius has been delayed for the second time so far. Second time this month, rather. And it is now set to hit theaters January 2022. We've got... the list goes on. So we've got the Uncharted movie has now been pushed back to February of 2022. The James Bond film, Daniel Craig's final James Bond film, No Time to Die, pushed back to November of 2021. Fingers crossed. Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, also pushed back to June of 2021. I feel like that's very ambitious. I believe that's one of the only ones that is pushed back, still set to release this summer. So we'll have to see how that goes. Ghostbusters Afterlife also pushed back, this time to November 2021. Canceled altogether. If you thought you'd be able to get out of the house this summer and have a good time, I am so sorry to tell you that the Glastonbury Festival has been canceled. They are looking at live stream options, but you will not be able to just go out to the countryside, have a good time in the UK this summer with the music festival. And there are rumors that the Tokyo Olympics are also going to be canceled as Japan tries to secure the 2032 spot for the Summer Olympic Games. That is unconfirmed, just a rumor on the Olympic front, but if we thought we were getting back to normal, it doesn't seem like that's happening in 2021.
I know. Do you know, when I heard Glastonbury a couple of days ago, I was just like, it's not a good sign. It's really not a good sign. Like, I mean, the pushbacks I kind of get a little bit, but the actual cancellation of a live event from the summer from...
Yeah. Well, here in Texas, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is the largest rodeo in the world. They have completely canceled the cook-off, which the cook-off here is like a chili cook-off. It sees hundreds of thousands of people every year. They have canceled the cook-off, and they are considering pushing back the livestock show and rodeo. So we will have to see if that happens, but that is definitely one of the biggest events in the entire state of Texas. So
yeah, it's disappointing news all around. I think we all keep hoping and praying it's just things are going to get back to normal.
Oh, well, we'll see. So. Also, Fast and Furious, they have not officially confirmed it, but they are considering pushing back Fast and Furious, which had already been pushed back to April. Probably going to get pushed back a little bit further.
Right. So Donny Cates has announced on Twitter that him and Ryan Stegman's final issue of Venom will be out in April for Venom 200. So I think that's from memory, Venom issue 35 of the current volume, but 200 issues overall for Venom. Since his ever first issue, they've probably done like a legacy numbering and totaled all his minis and various ongoings and come up with 200 issues. And I don't know if that's renumbered or if they just slapped a 200 on the front of it, but they've said that is going to be their final book, and it's all coming to a head as King in Black comes to an end in around the same time. Apparently, this is all part of his plan. I've wondered if there's some sort of twist on this, but I guess we'll have to wait till April to read it and find out. So,
he's got to have something coming up after King of Black, right? Like he has to.
Yeah, I did see though that it's a $10 book for a single issue. That's clearly going to be a jam-packed book, a fairly fat book. So I imagine it's going to be a good send-off if there is nothing following. I can't see them leaving Venom with no book. Like, it's been a really good selling book the last few years since he's taken it over. I'd be shocked if Venom's completely finished, but we'll see. In more Marvel news, though, Marvel over the last couple of days have released a couple of teasers for Heroes Reborn 25th anniversary event, which makes me feel nice and old because the Heroes Reborn that came out 25 years ago was when I first started getting into comics. And I got really excited by this news because it was the first event I ever read as a comic book fan. I don't know, 14, 15, something like that when this came out. And I didn't know things like comic book events were even a thing. And so for those who know or don't know, Heroes Reborn was what happened after this massive battle with a character called Onslaught, who was an amalgamation of Charles Xavier and Magneto. And it had been building up in the comics for 2 years, but obviously I hadn't been around reading comics for 2 years. I just came in and started reading the X-Men and Avengers and stuff like that, and read this whole event and led to this massive battle in Central Park. And it created this alternate world where Captain America, Iron Man, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, they all got shifted off to this alternate world, which later on got called Counter-Earth. And they didn't know anything about their previous lives, and it was like kind of like a bit like DC's Rebirth, you know. It was a start again, and it was done. It was really popular, and what Marvel had done is they'd farmed it out to people like Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Jim Valentino, Jeff Loeb, and it was done under two fractions of Image Comics, Wildstorm, and whatever Rob Liefeld had at the time. Rob's books weren't as popular, so they carved him off after a couple of issues, and then brought it in with just Jim Lee looking after all 4 books. But it was really popular. It's the first time I'd ever read Marvel superhero books. So when they announced this, I was really excited. They've released a couple of teasers which actually have nothing to do with the original event. So the teasers show like Reed Richards and Ben Grimm as what looks like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They've released like an amalgamation of a character that's the Juggernaut and Doctor Doom combined.
That sounds like a very interesting mashup.
Like, yeah, you should see it. Well, if you haven't seen it, look at the picture. It's like got like a Juggernaut size helmet on top of a Doctor Doom, and then they've released a picture of Peter Parker as a photographer, sort of looking geeky with his glasses, looking very sort of 70s, taking a picture, and you just see a foot of this superhero. So is this where have they separated Peter Parker out? Is he not a superhero? The one though I thought was really quite timely was Coulson running for president. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what any of this is going to lead to. I don't know any more than probably anyone listening right now. I'm intrigued. I'd like to see what this 25th anniversary is going to look like, but it sort of was very nostalgic to me because obviously it was my first ever comic event. Yeah. I just remember picking up the first couple of issues of sort of the Onslaught sort of crossover event, and seeing like the Avengers land at the X-Men mansion. And I didn't know things like crossovers really happened. And I thought it was really cool just seeing the superheroes the Avengers mixing with the X-Men. And yeah, I thought it was really cool. So I'm excited to see what this 25th anniversary event looks like.
And our last bit of news that has been giving me life all week is the Bernie Sanders chairman meme. If you have not seen it, please hop on Twitter and look it up. It is Bernie Sanders was photographed at the inauguration of the 46th president of the United States, and he just kind of looked like that crotchety old uncle that comes to every single family event but sits in a corner and doesn't talk to anyone. So they have photoshopped this poor freezing cold Bernie Sanders into so many different places Jurassic World has even tweeted about him. There was a meme where someone placed him on the toilets as the guy who gets eaten in the first Jurassic Park. I have seen Bernie Sanders with Totoro. I have seen Bernie Sanders in the film Friday. I mean, I have seen Bob Ross painting pictures of Bernie Sanders in his chair. The best part about the whole meme, though, is Bernie Sanders has released t-shirts on his own website for purchase of him in the chair, and 100% of the proceeds from every shirt sold goes to Meals on Wheels in his home state of Vermont. So I thought that was a really, really kind of nice way to turn that around.
It's good that he's taken that well.
Yeah,
people...
he's taken it in stride, and it's nice to be able to laugh at a politician instead of crying or being frustrated over the past.
I was going to say, imagine if they had released a Chairman Donald Trump meme.
I don't imagine that would have gone over as well.
No, I don't think. I can't see Trump releasing T-shirts of himself.
No. So yeah, Bernie's been very, very funny about it. He's appeared on a couple of different late night series. He was on the Seth Meyers Late Show. So again, taking it all in stride and donating to charity as riding the wave. So there we go.
I think though that's the only way to take things like that though, because if he got stroppy and got annoyed about it, people would just do it more.
Of course.
If anyone's making fun of you, just go with it.
Yeah.
We
can to a certain extent. I mean, it was all in good humor. Like nobody was being malicious about it, but it's just it's been a nice change of pace, and I apologize to anyone that follows me that listens to our podcast, but I have been retweeting nothing but Bernie memes for the past 3 days.
And we begin with our first review of the week.
Because I don't have a home, because no landlord wants to rent to an ex-con on post-release. No one cares that the dope wasn't mine, or that the crows were dirty, or that I'm actually a decent human. I am a file in your cabinet. That is not having power. That is the very definition of powerless.
Batwoman, I keep doing that. Batwoman, first episode of season 2 on the CW. So directed by Holly Dale, starring our new Batwoman, Javicia Leslie, and
all the same returning cast.
I literally was about to say I'm not going to read it, but it's all the same cast. Basically, is back, and to summarize what happened last time, you can go and read, go and listen to our previous podcast where we summarized the entire of season 1. I think it was our second to last podcast of 2020. We went through our dislikes and likes of the show.
Right. That was a fun format, actually.
One of my main dislikes was definitely Ruby Rose. So I'm fairly pleased with her not being there. And I think that's sort of highlighted in this episode, really, in terms of you can see the difference because she clearly didn't want to be there, Ruby Rose, and Javicia clearly wants to be Batwoman, and I think you can see that presence, the tone between both of them on the screen. Okay, so this episode kicks off pretty much what I think is a day, 2-3 days after season 1 finishes.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's not been any particular time jumps or anything like that. And we're introduced to Javicia's Ryan Wilder, and a plane has crashed in Gotham City, and that plane apparently contained Ruby Rose's Kate Kane, and Javicia finds the Batwoman costume. I mean, it's a brilliant find. I'll give you that. I mean, and then begins what I think is actually a very strong first episode of kind of putting to bed her Batwoman and beginning of a new era of Batwoman within Gotham City. And I think it's a shame that we didn't get to see some of these moments with Ruby Rose's character, like with her father, unfortunately finding out the news, his daughter was Batwoman. I think that would have been brilliant to have seen that unmasking happen in the show rather than him finding out. Disappointing, I would say, but equally, I found that this first episode really did close off a lot of Kate Kane very quickly.
Yes.
But and I think it did it really well in with Ryan's character. Like,
Yeah.
so she gets this costume on, and we don't know too much about her, but she's living in like a caravan, and
which is the only reason that she was there. So like at the plane crash scene is because she's living out of her car. And her car happened to be parked by the lake or the river, and the plane crashed while she was sleeping in her car. So, and
so she gets this costume on, and what I didn't get initially was why she wanted to put it on, but it gets explained later in the episode. And I was actually a bit foggy about this, and but she puts this costume on and decides to start going beating up criminals. And I did think, like, what's made her go from this sort of jump from, like you say, living in a car to sort of whacking the suit on? And it is explained later on in the show, but I love this moment in the alleyway. You see these criminals, and they're all typical Gotham City type villains wearing stupid masks, and I kind of wish they wouldn't do it all the time, but I guess it's very comic booky, like to have just feel. I mean, if you're a villain, like, why walk around with a mask unless you're
but they're part of a gang, because she calls them the No Face. So
I know, but I know, but I sometimes think, like, you'd probably be able to get away with crime easier if you just weren't wearing a mask, because
because people would be able to see you coming from a mile away.
Yeah, like it's very comic booky to wear a mask, even if you're just a low-level villain. But anyway, but what I loved her opening moment where she's hanging. I know it was in the trailer, but when she was hanging upside down, and then suddenly her head comes down, and she goes boo, and I was like, that is a brilliant entry. That is someone who's having fun with this role. I mean, I'm assuming it was written for her, but I loved that moment. But what I liked next was that she wasn't amazing. They pulled her down, and like she hits the floor, and she goes, "I didn't think this through," which again I thought was quite fun. And then she starts swinging around, and then
she very clearly does not have a grasp of how to use the suit at all, and it's very funny to watch her struggle with it.
And when she when the white things come down across her eyes, and they start giving her all computer
the night vision,
the night vision, but they start telling her things, and she's like, no idea what's going on, and she's swinging around all over the place. And then when she's like, oh yeah, I'm bulletproof, bitches, like, and I was like, do you know what, this is actually like fun to watch. It's like really like changed my perception on this show. I found it really difficult to watch it before, like season 1 before Crisis. I really found it grating. And then I kind of gave up on the show, and then we decided, because we were going to review it, I went back and finished it off, and there were highlights in season 1. I'm not going to lie, there was some good episodes still in there, and it is quite a dark show, and it does have that Gotham feel about it. You know, it's not like watching Supergirl, for instance. Like, you know, it is a quite a nice, enjoyably dark show that does its best. But one of my big hates about season 1 was that just everybody knew Batwoman. She wasn't mysterious. I mean, very quickly, everybody, or most people in her connected circle, found out she was Batwoman.
It seems like Mary and her father were the only two people that it took Mary forever to find out, but her dad never found out.
No, but then everyone in the city was like, yeah, Batwoman. You know, people would actually, like, she'd be on the front cover, like, of the papers and magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
And so one of my hopes for this is now that Ryan Wilder will be a lot more covert, but we'll have to see. So anyway, so as the show goes on, we also have to deal with the new Bruce Wayne, which, if you know, at the end of season 1, Tommy, aka Hush, had taken on a new face, that of Bruce Wayne. So I saw some of your comments, Jasmin. Actually, I would have liked this story to have gone on, maybe not for the whole season. No, I wouldn't want it to have, like, you know, lost. You know, been very CW. I wouldn't want it to take 22 episodes and we just get loads of filler episodes. But like, I would have been happy for this Bruce Wayne story to have maybe been like the first arc, like maybe like 5 episodes or something like that. I was a little bit annoyed by how very quickly they worked out that he was not Bruce Wayne. Yeah. However, other hand,
Julia was the only one that figured it out. Everybody else was just kind of like, oh, Bruce is back.
Well, yeah, no, everyone did immediately accept it, which was also frustrating that he was immediately let into the Batcave, and that nobody picked up that he clearly was acting very differently from Bruce Wayne, and I guess maybe I don't know, because I can imagine Bruce Wayne probably is aloof, but Julia Pennyworth picked it up instantly,
Yeah.
and I was like, could we not just even had this like next episode? Could we just have maybe like this been like the first arc villain that maybe Ryan has to go up against?
No, I'm glad we got it out of the way early because it makes room for whatever other story they're actually trying to tell.
But it did. But then on the other hand, the counter argument to it is like you just said. Like the counter argument to that is, have they sat back and said, no, look, let's try and wrap up 90% of the stories that were going to be for Kate Kane, and then try and actually build in new stories for Ron Wilder. Another hope of mine is I would love to see less of the Crows, which I don't think is going to happen. I'd be shocked to see less of the Crows. I would like to see more from Gotham PD and more in the city and stuff like that. So, I think we are still going to see more Crows, but I wonder if the Colonel will take a different approach. So, for in the episode when he has a confrontation with Alice, who breaks it down to her that Kate Kane was Batwoman, and he doesn't believe her, and because so he finds out that she's staying in Wayne Manor because Bruce Wayne.
Fake Bruce Wayne,
fake Wayne. Like, you know, there's got to be a name in there somewhere, some combination name. I don't know now, like Tommy Wayne. I don't know. So like he tells Kate Kane's dad that he's like, you know, I just got back in the city. I've got a tip for you. Alice is staying in the mansion because he's already had enough of Alice because Alice still wants to run things and he's quite enjoying now being the big dog. Recognizing that he's Bruce Wayne and actually he can
he has freedom of movement.
Freedom of movement, but also he can play with Bruce's toys, which does happen. So he tips off the Colonel to go and get Alice, and he actually doesn't get Alice. He actually kind of walks out of there and lets it go. But he has this confrontation with his daughter, and he says, "Look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to find her. I'm not going to make the same mistakes I've made with you." And she's like, look,
honestly, that's kind of a shitty thing to say to the daughter that you gave up searching for.
I did think that as well. I did think, come on, man. I was like, she's right. You know, she's right there. You could say that if she was maybe dead, like, oh, I don't want to make the same mistakes I made with my dead daughter or whatever. Right. But to say it to your daughter who's come back to life and clearly has been so badly affected by not being rescued by him, which actually was probably that storyline in the first season was unsurprisingly dark and twisty and not something I normally would expect in a CW type show. It was it was
very dark.
Yeah, like just, you know, the moment, you know, the daughter being in the room and even her dad being in the house where she was and not being able to get out. I mean, as a dad myself, like that would just destroy me. Like, so to say to one of your daughters, I don't want to make that mistake again, was quite a heartbreaking moment. Like, I agree with you. It was a really unnecessarily vicious thing to say.
Yes, it was unnecessary.
And I mean, he's upset, but it's obviously showing where his love is. So clearly he doesn't find Kate, but he comes to this moment later on in the episode where he does flick on the
because Alice tells him, because he's like, no, I don't believe you, she's not Batwoman, because if she was Batwoman, Kate would have told me. And Alice is like, well, if you don't believe me, turn on the bat signal and see if she shows up.
Which he did, and she didn't show up. So I did wonder whether Ryan Wilder might show up, but it's probably a bit too early for that. So I sort of enjoyed that. But then Bruce Wayne, what I did love as well, fake Wayne, if you want to call him that. When I loved I did love. That's the thing is, I did love some of the naughtiness that he got to be as Bruce. So that's kind of why I wouldn't have minded an episode or two, or, you know, rather than this being wrapped up as quickly as it did. So he starts blowing up holes in the walls of the Batcave and finds a Batmobile, and I was like, but I do have to question: is there any more walls to blow up? Is there other things in that Batcave that we don't know?
There have to be, right? And it was really funny because even Luke was like, until 20 seconds ago, I did not know that existed. So apparently, Bruce in this version of Gotham, Bruce didn't roll around town in a Batmobile. So like even Luke Fox, who was part of like his background crew, didn't know that the Batmobile was there. So,
well, unless he did use it, but he sealed it up. I guess I don't know, but like it's quite a big thing to seal up. But I don't know. But yeah, so then you just get to see fake Wayne driving around the city, who goes out hunting for Ryan Wilder, and so Batwoman does have some interactions with I forgot her name. The stepdaughter of
Mary.
Mary, yeah. So they do have some interactions with Mary and Fox as well. I forgot terrible names, but anyway, so they sort of interact with a little bit, and because they obviously the suit comes online and they go at Mary.
Yes, because when new Batwoman is trying to figure things out, she just keeps pushing buttons and she turns on the suit's GPS. So Luke and Mary follow the GPS and they run into Ryan, and she's like, look, I get it. I realize that Kate Kane was a hero both like in her personal life and as Batwoman. That's not me, but I'm not giving you the suit back until I'm done with what I need to do. So peace out.
But then they step in to save her once they realize what the fake Wayne is up to. So they do piece together very quickly that it's not Bruce. So Julia Pennyworth is very clever, quite switched on, to be honest. She gets the fingerprints of something he held and finds out that it's Tommy Elliott. And
but she got suspicious because when she saw Bruce, she used Alfred's code name, and he had no idea who she was talking about. And so because of that, she knew, like, you are not who you say you are.
And she followed it up with a question about something about the house in Glasgow or something like that.
Right.
But he doesn't
and
have
Alfred
a house in
lives
Glasgow.
in London.
Yeah, and London, baby. So she immediately tells everyone, and so they quickly call Ryan on the suit and say, someone's on the way to kill you, but they luckily get control. They get control of the Batmobile, from the Batcave. To be honest, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. And right at the very end of the episode, you do get a flashback of Ryan Wilder and her motivations of wanting to become Batwoman, and showing flashbacks of, unfortunately, what Alice did to her family.
Alice's thugs.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Alice's thugs. But yeah, so... no, overall, though, do you know what? I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a real shift and a change of pace, and I felt like Javicia really wanted to be Batwoman and was having fun in this role. I enjoyed the fact that we got to see a lot of things tied up from Kate Kane, but I felt like it's always going to be difficult when a main character leaves, and especially to kill off that character off screen. Now,
there's no body. So I'm thinking that maybe if tensions cool down and, if CW decides to reach out to Ruby Rose in a year or so, then there's room for her to come back in some capacity, not necessarily as Batwoman, but just like to wrap up a quote unquote final appearance. But that's always the rule with the comic book movies, right? If there's no body, there's no real death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, we said that, was it couple of weeks ago with the Doom Chronicles with one of the main characters.
When Shale supposedly died at the end of the first season, but there was no body.
There's no body. If there's no body, there's no death. And so if you can't, so with this, clearly she's not dead. Like you just say, the rules of anything comic book related,
right?
Or anything sci-fi related, or even if you watch bloody soaps, if there's no body, there's no death.
No body, no death. That's the rule.
To be fair, in soaps, sometimes if there's a body, they still can bring them back. So,
yes.
But they don't find her. They don't find her body. But I think
they find the pilot's hand, not the rest of the pilot's body. But they don't find any part of Kate Kane's body.
I think, you're right. They could go two ways with this. They could eventually bring Ruby Rose back, and I do agree with you. They wouldn't bring Ruby Rose back permanently. If they bring her back, it'll be like an episode.
It would literally be to finally wrap it up and be like, okay, we are now officially done with Kate Kane.
You can see that maybe it could be something that they would do, say at the end of season 2, or even at some point. I wouldn't want it to drag on forever, more with what happened to Kate Kane. But it would be cool if, say, the end of season 2, they brought back Kate Kane in the season finale, and she meets Ryan Wilder and says, "Look, you're doing a really good job. you've got my permission to carry on being Batwoman or whatever it is, and maybe she sees her dad and Alice, and then she leaves. It could be like a moment where she takes Alice with her and says, I'm that actually could be a good way of doing it. That she takes Alice with her and says, I want to put my relationship with my sister above being Batwoman, and that would probably be a nice twist. Maybe it might be that wherever she's gone, she finds Bruce Wayne, and like maybe Bruce comes back as well, and they take Alice and to sort of, like you're saying, they leave Ryan as in charge of the city. They see that she's been doing a good job. That would be quite a nice way of finishing this off. I could get on board that.
I mean, I don't see I think it would be a nice touch if it was just kind of like Kate and Alice finally are just like, you know what, screw it, let's leave together. So, especially since Alice no longer has Mouse. And I can't imagine, and Alice never liked Tommy. I don't think anybody likes Tommy. So she doesn't have a sidekick right now. So I think that if Kate did come back at the end of the season, now there's a lot of episodes between now and the end of the season, but if Kate were to come back, it's possible, like with no other people in Alice's life, if they both chose to leave their father behind, and maybe they could go off and quote unquote live happily ever after.
The other thing I wondered was, I know they were anti-recasting Kate Kane, but maybe they might choose to recast Kate Kane for one episode, say in like
in a non-speaking, non-face role. Like if it was kind of like the end of Batman, where Alfred sees Bruce Wayne at a cafe, it's from a distance. Like you see someone that you think could be Kate Kane because they have the same haircut, and you can see like a tattooed arm or something to give you the impression that she's still alive and that she could potentially be happy. I could see them doing something like that.
Yeah. They'll have to bring it to a close. They can't just leave it open forever.
Yeah, they can't leave the nobody thing.
Yeah.
But I was actually surprised at how much surprised at how much I came to like the characters by the end of the first season, because when I watched this episode, I was genuinely like, oh my gosh, I kind of miss you guys. So like it's nice to catch up and see what's going on now. So we were talking about this earlier in the week, and you were like, I really think that they kind of did the best they could do with given the material. But I would agree with that. I think that they did a good job of both tying Javicia or Ryan Wilder to last season by saying, oh, it was Alice's thugs that killed her mother that set her off onto this sort of revenge path. So bringing the new girl in, but having the new girl have a vendetta against the existing villain, that was a good start. But also the way that they sort of wrapped up everyone else's emotions about Kate, because it was like throughout the episode, everyone kind of came to terms with, holy crap, Kate is actually dead. I think Luke was the first one to kind of accept it. And then, of course, Mary and her father were the last two to accept it. But I think that's a nice touch. I also think it's a nice touch that this Sophia person has been sort of this man behind the curtain kind of thing. Like that name came up in the first season. It kind of chilled even Julia to the bone, who is a very experienced agent and has been doing this for a long time. So Sophia has ties to Julia. Sophia has ties to Alice. But I also think it's super interesting because we have never met Sophia. Like we know that she's a woman because both Julia and Alice have described her as a woman, but like we have no idea what this character is like. So I kind of like the idea of an unseen villain, because until you actually meet the villain, then it's always going to be like worse in your own mind, right? So I've already got like, and maybe I'm setting myself up for failure, but like I've already got this massive idea of Sophia being this like super badass villain. So I'm excited to see how she plays into this season.
One of the things I remember you complaining about in season 1 was Kate Kane constantly forgiving Alice, like because obviously it was her sister. Yeah. But we're going to have a different dynamic here. Ryan Wilder's not going to forgive Alice.
No.
I think the definition would definitely hero and villain here. There won't.
Yes.
I mean, I would be annoyed now if they wrote in some unrealistic reason for Ryan Wilder to forgive Alice.
I don't think they will, because Ryan Wilder is the way that they build her character up is that she was she's an orphan, basically. She's bounced around from foster home to foster home, and she finally found a foster mother that she actually called mom, that she was excited to be starting a new life with. And right before she got to start that new life, it was snuffed out by Alice's thugs. Now, for someone who has been in the system, and now when she was just getting everything on the right track, she goes back into the system, but she spent 18 months in jail because of a crime she didn't commit, because I guess the district attorney blamed her for her mother's death. So she's got this grudge that Alice has taken the life that she was supposed to have. So I don't see her being forgiving to Alice at all.
I think it's going to be a really interesting dynamic. And I think you mentioned as well, like one of the other teasers that they give, which I kind of think will pull Ryan back to Luke and Mary, is she gets shot by a kryptonite bullet and everyone thinks she's okay and she survived. But actually, like at the end, you see sort of kryptonite on the surface of her skin and
having a reaction.
Yeah. So I think that'll pull her back. And I tell you what, I've got renewed energy for this, and I'd be quite up for carrying this going.
Now, I don't see myself doing week to week, but I definitely see myself doing like maybe at the halfway point, like a catch up binge, and then another binge at the end.
Well, I don't know. Well, are they going to have a catch up? Sorry, a halfway point, because obviously they started in January. Will they not just roll this out all the way?
You never know. So, but if she's got this kryptonite reaction, I wonder how that's going to play out, because inevitably they're going to have the multi Arrowverse crossover. So
they won't have that this year, though.
Oh, they won't?
No, there was going to be a Batwoman Superman crossover this year, but they were saying that they won't do. Well, I read the other day that it's looking like they won't do it now because of COVID.
Oh, that sucks, because I really want to know what would happen if Javicia stood too close to Supergirl.
Well, yeah, and so it's unlikely that you'll see Supergirl and Batwoman together now, because obviously Supergirl's coming to an end. So I don't think we'll get a crossover this year, which in some ways isn't too bad, because Crisis on Infinite Earths was so big. Like, it's very difficult to keep topping your crossovers. So actually, it's not having a crossover this year. Actually, probably not a bad thing. However, it's disappointing because Supergirl's final season, I'm hoping that they leave it open enough that she can come back and at least have some sort of crossover with the new Batwoman. I
think with that show, they're going to leave it wide open, because it's the ratings for the show that have gone down. So I think that everybody still loves Melissa. So I think she'll always have like an open door to sort of do a cameo here and there in the rest of the.
I reckon she would as well. She would. Yeah, who couldn't love Melissa? She seems like honestly, she seems so lovely. Yeah, honestly, like she seems so adorable. Like she seems like the kind of person you just want to hang out with. Like I see photos of her like hugging fans and singing or dancing or whatever, and we're not going to talk about too much, but when I saw that video of her and what happened to her, honestly, that upset me. Like she just seems like such an amazing person. So I really hope they leave it open that Melissa can come back. I would love to see Supergirl and the new Batwoman team up. I love the comment when they first met, Kate Kane, and she makes a comment about world's finest, which is what they call Batman and Superman. So it was quite funny to see Supergirl and Batwoman consider themselves world's finest. So I'd love to see a new team up. But anyway, we should probably leave that there. But yeah, no, I'm going to stick with this. I've given up on Legends of Tomorrow. It's an awful show. The only way you get me to watch Legends of Tomorrow now is if they bring back all the Canaries and Green Arrow of the future and wrap all that up. But I'm done with. The only shows I'm sticking with now is the new Superman one. I'm going to watch that. Batwoman. I love The Flash, and I will finish off Black Lightning. I've done 3 seasons of it. I might as well finish it off. Yeah. But I've had enough of Legends of Tomorrow.
You draw the line there.
It's just so stupid. I know people like comedy, but I don't like comedy superhero stuff. It's not for me. So, I prefer it when the superhero stuff's more serious. I don't mind like one-liners, but I don't want to watch comedy superhero shows.
I've only seen the first season of Legends of Tomorrow, and I hated the villain. I hated Vandal Savage. But also, Hawkgirl is one of my favorite characters from the Justice League cartoon. And to have Hawkgirl have left after the first season as well, I was like, I don't think there's enough.
They have
the show.
They do a lot every season. It's kind of a bit of a rotating cast, so they have the core members, which the core members are getting less and less of every year. But they kind of rotate the cast quite a lot, which is equally frustrating. But it's just become such a joke of a show now. Like I can't slate it. We haven't got enough time for me to have a rant about how much I hate it. So anyway, we rated Batwoman season premiere of season 2 3.5 out of 5. So
yeah, which is higher than I think we rated the entire Batwoman first season.
I can't remember what we rated it, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure this is a vast improvement over the first season. So
it's definitely a vast improvement. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on.
Stella, you want to tell me what the hell you were taking?
Using a substance to numb the mind? Huh, who does that? Mom always said you'd never be on a case too long.
I never meant to be. This last case got complicated.
Complicated? A 5-minute phone call this summer and then nothing for 3 months?
Our next review is the series premiere of Walker, also on the CW. It is based off of the TV series Walker, Texas Ranger that starred Chuck Norris from way back in 1993. This first episode was directed by Jessica Yu. It was written by Anna Frick. It stars Jared Padalecki, Lindsay Morgan, Keegan Allen, Mitch Pileggi, Molly Hagan, Kobe Bell, Jeff Pierce, Violet Brinson, and Cale Cully. So Jared is back. No break whatsoever. He jumped straight from Supernatural to a brand new series. So he's going on, well, if you count Gilmore Girls, because wasn't Gilmore Girls on CW? Well, would have been on what, WB or UPN before it was converted over to CW. Anyway, Jared is going on 20 plus years at this network at this point. So the original series ran from 1993 to 2001. And this one it's branching out, in my opinion, for CW because it actually films in and around the Austin, Texas area. So I am from Texas. I went to school in Austin. I went to UT. So when I watched this episode, it was very much like, oh my God, I used to go there. Oh my God, I remember that place. And I love that taco stand. So it was really kind of fun to watch this episode just for the background and for the scenery. So I do like that CW is getting out of Vancouver. I feel like they film, I think, the core of Batwoman in Vancouver, but a lot of the exterior shots, the city shots, are of Chicago. So it's nice to see CW step out of Canada so that everything doesn't look exactly the same on all of their shows. So the series kind of opens with Cordell Walker and his wife. She's getting ready to leave to go somewhere. It's not very clear as to where she's going, but she is leaving him with their teenage children. They're doing a game night with his parents. And so she goes off and then he goes to the game night. He has no idea how to play whatever game it is that they're playing. So he's terrible at it. And then he gets like an SOS text message from his wife. He steps away, she calls, he answers, and she's like, something is wrong. And then she gets shot. And you can hear the gunshots through the phone. But I thought that sequence of him stepping outside and screaming into the void as he like slides down the side of his car in agony. It's like, you don't know exactly what happened.
Oh, no,
how could you have given up already and just be like, oh my God, it's the worst. My life is over. And it's like, you don't know what the deal is.
Do you know, this is probably, this whole thing at the beginning was like my biggest criticism of the show. Like, yeah, it was. So firstly that they cut. So firstly that they cast his real life wife as his TV wife, just to get rid of her within literally 2 minutes.
She didn't even make it to the first commercial break.
So, but also you didn't get to see her spend any time with the children. There was no investment in her.
I'm
like, or
sure there's going
anything
to be
like that.
flashbacks, but
Oh, yeah,
for
I
the
know,
first
but-
episode, no, there's nothing.
Right, but what I mean was like, why go to the effort of casting his real life wife as his wife? Now I don't know I would love to understand where the mentality was on that. Like, was
Probably
it
just because it films in Austin, and
Well,
he
no,
was
no, but
like,
what-
"Well, let's just hire my wife," and the
Well, yeah, but
CW was
what-
like, "Okay."
Yeah, but what I mean is like, so she's obviously dead, but why not actually cast her as like the love interest in the show? I would have thought that was pretty cool, like for her to
Oh,
be.
like if she were the bar owner instead of
Yeah, she was the
yeah.
bar owner instead of the wife. Like, and in fact, got some unknown to play the wife, and maybe they did it deliberately so that people didn't think that the wife would get killed off. Like, I don't know, but then actually, I didn't actually read the summary or watch any trailers. I went into.
Oh
this
yeah,
not
they
knowing
tell you
anything.
right in the summary that his
so
wife
in the
dies.
summary that his
Yeah.
wife dies. So if they're going to tell you that, then you may as well just cast an unknown, because
Mhm.
obviously who cares? Like, I was annoyed that they cast his real life wife just to kill her off within 2 minutes, and I don't know what the thought process was on that. Like, and
I don't think
but
there
then-
was one.
no, and then like this whole thing that you just said. So I'm going to start with the text message. He's sitting there with his family playing a board game. It's all actually quite a nice moment. I was quite enjoying seeing the family dynamic. I thought,
Yeah, because
actually,
he's very out of place. He's like, I don't know what this is. This is totally unfair. And as soon as he says that, everybody is like,
all
we
jumping
knew
all
you
over
were
him,
going to
yeah.
say that. And it's like, you
So-
can tell that they are very close.
Oh yeah, so I think seeing him for 15 years in Supernatural playing this, to be honest, mopey bloke for 15 years, and then to see him actually like having fun with his family, and I actually could see the difference. I genuinely could see it. Didn't feel like I was watching Sam from Supernatural. It did feel like I was watching this Texas Ranger with his family. Really enjoyed that dynamic. Then, so this is the first thing that annoys me. Text message comes through that says literally SOS answer. And then within a few seconds, the phone rings. If you're in trouble, you don't write SOS answer. You just make the flipping phone call.
Yes,
And
this
like-
is
and like-
true.
So then when it shows her, she's like running and in trouble.
Yeah.
Did she stop and write SOS answer? Because it's written really nicely. SOS in
Plus,
capitals.
she had a
full stop
lantern in
answer.
her other hand. So
Like-
you are running with the lantern in one hand, and you
text
have
it.
your cell phone, and you're texting and running with the.
So
No, you're
the
not.
phone
In the
should-
dark?
the-
No, you're not.
The phone should have just rung. It should have just rung. There was no need for that text message.
Right.
I know why they did it. It was just to dumb it down for people that
No,
didn't
they
get that
did
there
it
was gonna
because
be a
they
phone.
needed a reason for him to get up from the board game.
Oh, couldn't you have just got up when the phone rang? Like, I mean, I would have got, if it was me, if I'm at a board game with a bunch of people, my phone rings and I think I've got to take it, I would get up and walk away anyway. Like, so anyway, so he takes it, like you say, here's some gunshots. He drives out to the middle of nowhere. And
No, he just went out to his truck. Like he just went outside the house to try to call her back. She didn't answer.
Oh, is
And
that, he
he only called one
Okay.
time, so she didn't answer that one time, and then he just like starts panicking and freaking out. And I'm just like,
Oh,
first of
okay.
all,
I
you're
think
a
I must
Texas
have-
Ranger. Like freaking
must have
out shouldn't
misunderstood-
be your first.
I must have understood that because I thought that he'd actually gone somewhere. Like that makes it even worse now. So he like
It's basically like he's out on the driveway.
so he rings and it just goes through to voicemail and he starts screaming or
Yes.
whatever. But you do see a flash of her laying on the floor with her phone laying there, and she's like shot. So when he starts screaming out, I was like, I actually had to skip that back and watch that bit 3 times. I was like, how has this happened? Like, and,
Yeah.
I was really lost.
That
And
was
then-
very that entire sequence was very poorly orchestrated. Like again, I just feel like mainly because you are in law enforcement, that your reaction is not a reaction that someone in law enforcement should have. Like you don't know what's happening. Yeah, you heard gunshots, and yeah, the phone did, but like you don't know that she got shot. You should be
Yeah.
assuming like maybe she dropped her phone to run away from the gunshot. But like there's so many other things that you could have been thinking, but instead you go outside and you just scream and give up. Like, oh God, she's dead. Like, how the hell do you know she's dead?
So when it flashes 11 months later, like we'll come back to everything that goes on. But later on in the right towards the end of the episode, he's sitting having a moment with his brother. Obviously, 11 months has passed, whatever. And then he says something about him and his brother are chatting on this bench, and he's playing
got a
with
poker chip.
poker chip. Yeah, he's playing with poker chip in his fingers. And then they start talking about them, and then he's like, "Oh, I know what," he says to Walker, "I know what you're doing." Blah blah blah. And then they talk about, and then he starts talking about how they found the body and the eyes were closed. Blah blah blah. I was like, "Oh, so she is dead then?" Like because like literally up until that point, I was questioning whether he'd even found the body, like because I started to think,
No,
like that.
I mean, she got shot. Like,
Yeah,
she
no, I
died.
know. No, I know she got shot, but they didn't show him find the body. It jumps 11 months forward, and you see him coming back from some case, I'd been working on the assumption until that point that they just assumed she was dead, but didn't like know where the body was. And then he starts talking to the brother and saying, about the body. I was like, okay, so she definitely is 100% dead. They found the body, but they've just not bothered to show us any of that. So this whole sort of, to tie back to this, I felt like they rushed through this thing of trying to make him like a widow, and they wanted to do that really quickly, and I really felt like there was really a lot of poor writing and decision making went into setting that whole premises up.
Yes.
I would have probably got on board with actually her dying in the end of the episode, and actually had some like character moments with her children, and almost been and them not also tell us in the summary of the episode that she dies. So that would have been such a good twist. Like, why do they rush these things? Like, just actually set it up that it's a nice husband and wife show, family, he's a cop, even give him a case to work on, etc. And then suddenly she gets killed off in the final episodes of season, the first episode of this season. And then season 2 starts 11 months later. That to me would have been a really cool thing to have done, but it was a bad rushing there.
Yeah, the pacing was horrible in this first episode. None of the pacing for anything made sense, because he disappears for 11 months and we find out later that he was on some kind of undercover case. Now, he had done that kind of work before, but this time he stopped contacting his family 3 months prior to returning to town. So they have not heard from him, not a text message, not an email, not a phone call, nothing for 3 months. And his daughter is the oldest. I want to say she's 16 and her brother is like 14. And so she's like really messed up about it. And the way that they sort of the way that they play that family dynamic, like, you abandon us right after mom died, and that really sucks. Even, I mean, I can understand. Well, I mean, not personally, thank God, but like, I can see why you would have the personalities of the kids change. But again, like, the pacing in this first episode is so off. The audience and the viewers, we have not had time to get to know any of these characters. So it is really hard to be attached to any of them and to feel the same empathy that they kind of deserve as being children of whose parents have, or whose mother has died. But it's hard to get attached to his family just because it rushes. Like, the board game itself at the very beginning is rushed. The 11 months later, where who the hell knows what happened in those 11 months, but the people that we meet after the 11 months have come up versus the people that we met at the beginning of the episode, they're not the same people. And it's like, I don't know what changed. I mean, obviously you guys know what changed, but I don't know what changed. So it's hard for me to make the jump from liking them while they're playing the board game and, oh, they're having fun and they're being having family time, to this really messed up dynamic that I don't even understand. So it's weird for the viewer to be in the same boat as Walker, to me.
I was just saying, another moment that actually annoyed me in terms of rushing, because I actually was enjoying the scene, was when Walker goes into a bar and meets I don't know, I can't remember the character's name, but Odette Annabelle's character. She's at the bar, and that's clearly instantly setting up the love interest.
Yes,
which is why I think his real life wife should have been playing that character.
Well, I'm hoping that since they cast Odette Annabelle, that she's gonna be a throwback to her badass character from Banshee. Is my hope. Like, maybe they'll get into some shenanigans, and we'll actually get to see her kicking some ass, because she's awesome.
So he goes in and he's quite upbeat, and there's what I think actually was a good dynamic between the two of them in the bar. And what I loved was, and I obviously being an Englishman, I'm going to tell you in a minute how I can't relate to this scene at all, but why I love it. So he goes in, and me and my wife made a comment about him wearing his cowboy hat. And like my wife was like, I love that. Like, and like that we just would not. I mean, if you wore a cowboy hat anywhere in this country, you just like people would think you were mental or going to a fancy dress party or something. Like, and once I wore a cowboy hat during the summer, like for about an hour because I couldn't find my sunglasses. This is years ago, about 10 or 11 years ago. And my wife was dying, and I just couldn't find any sunglasses, and the sun was out, and they were when we were and she immediately brought it up again. But anyway, so he's wearing that in this bar, and he starts, and there's like some good banter between them, which I liked, and you instantly know there's the love interest, and then he's like, come on, get up and do your 2-step, and like I was like, do you know what? I went, men in this country, including me, would never get up and just start suddenly dancing like that. We just wouldn't do it. Like,
listen, you don't go to a 2-step honky tonk bar and not 2-step.
Well, having never been to one, but equally I can't dance anyway. But so he gets her up, and I was enjoying this whole moment. He doesn't even do 10 seconds of dancing with her, and his phone goes off, and he goes, right, I've got to go work. We'll do this again. And I was like, why could you not have allowed this scene to just go on even a minute? I have to say, like, the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm getting annoyed by the pacing of it.
Yeah, the pacing was completely off.
I would love to have seen more of that scene, just the two of them. So she's only in that one scene. Like you say, like hopefully she'll have more time. And again, this is CW recycling actors. She was on the season 2 of Supergirl for a whole season as sort of the main villain. No problem with that, but the CW do kind of recycle their actors, but then again, I do look on that again as CW looking after their cast and their actors, and why not look after people that are willing to work for you, and if they're reliable, and you know their strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, no, that sort of really frustrated me, that scene.
So one of the newest characters, the newest addition to like the Walker, well, the family itself is kind of new too. So his old partner before all of this happened is now his boss. And he gets a new partner. His new partner is brand new. She used to be a state trooper, and now she's a Texas Ranger. Her name is Mickey. And he said, well, I saw your name on paper and I assumed you were a guy. And her first introduction, well, not first introduction, you meet her earlier, but her response to that is, well, yeah, my mom thought I was going to be a boy too. So that's why my name is Mickey.
So she's played by Lindsay Morgan, who I loved in The 100. The 100, one of the best sci-fi shows ever made. And Lindsay Morgan played Raven, who was just one of the most standout actresses in The 100. Again, a CW show. However, I loved seeing her in this. She's so cheeky. Like,
she is literally the best freaking character in this entire series so far.
Yeah.
She is so great. She is so strong. She carries the scenes really well. The best interactions to me in this first episode were between her and Walker. They have a great chemistry, and not necessarily in a like, oh, we're eventually going to hook up kind of way, but like
I don't see
they
that.
just have a great banter between the two of them. Like they get along with each other very well. They're witty, they play off of each other well, and it reminded me a lot of the way that Jared was in Supernatural with Jensen. And it, to me, watching this episode, what I noticed the most was how stiff Jared Padalecki was when he did not have a strong scene partner. So like in the scenes where he's with his kids, it none of that feels authentic to me. The scenes with his parents are a little bit better, and I think it's just because the parent actors are much older. Plus, Mitch Pileggi, who plays his dad, is definitely used to working with him because he was grandpa in Supernatural.
But also, Mitch Pileggi is just a really seasoned, strong actor. I mean,
yes, yeah.
Do you know what? I've seen him in so many things. He should be given more work, and he should be given more lead roles, but I don't think he's ever been given a lead role that I'm aware of. I loved him in Dallas. I actually went to Google this. I don't know if he is from Texas or not, but he was in Dallas for 3 seasons, and like a sort of a villain type character in the more rebooted Dallas that finished quite a few years ago. But I mean, I loved him in the X-Files. He
was good in Supernatural.
It was.
But I think I wanted to be excited for Jared for this series because I want him to branch out from Supernatural and do different things. But he's weak by himself. And it's almost like to me, he's not quite at lead status yet, because it just doesn't feel like he carries this series by himself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, him and Mickey together, they were great. Like the interaction when she had to pull him off of a perp that they were trying to arrest, the interaction between when she brought him back to her apartment and her army medic boyfriend fixed up his wounds. Just the dialogue, the dynamic, the banter between the two of them is really, really great. And I think that should be enough to get this series to a better point. But I think this series takes itself too seriously. They're already trying to tackle to me, it seems like they're trying to tackle like a Mexican cartel theme. And I don't know that they have the depth like in the writer's room to do this on a CW show. So I'm nervous about the stereotypes they're going to step on, trying to play up this whole because Mickey is this, she's Mexican American. Her family was totally against her joining the Texas Rangers. They thought that was a betrayal. So them being able to navigate this Mexican family dynamic versus law enforcement and the unfair treatment in law enforcement. I don't know that this show is going to be able to do that if that's the route that they're going. But I am excited to see more of Mickey and Walker together, because I do think that they make a good pair.
I want to sort of finish off saying what I did enjoy. I think that it's lighthearted. It doesn't stretch me. There are certain shows you put on where you can't take your eyes off the screen. Mm-hmm. This is a show you can put on. It's a sort of semi watchable family show. You can't have young kids, but it's semi family watchable. If your kids walked in accidentally while you're watching it wouldn't have been a big deal. Mm-hmm. There's no swearing, there's no nudity, there's nothing grotesque, other than the odd mention to drugs or something. Actually, you probably
it's not an R-rated series by any means.
And Jared, 15 years on Supernatural, it's a big jump, suddenly to having a lead role. But actually, I did feel he did all right. It was all right. But yeah, like you say, though, there's really, he's supported well by people like Mitch Pileggi and Lindsay Morgan, who are very strong actors. And Lindsay Morgan in the 100 could run scenes on her own. She was one of the top.
As soon as she opened her mouth when she was still a state trooper before she got promoted to Texas Ranger, I was like, oh, I don't know who this girl is, but I like her. I like her spunk.
You should watch the 100. You should watch 100. She's one of the best characters in the 100. She in the 100. She was a badass mechanic. And she was so good in the 100. So I actually didn't realize she was in this. When I saw her in this, I was like, oh, flipping heck! I was like, I'm so pleased that she's in this. So, I would carry on watching this, but I don't think it would be a priority for me. It would just be if I've got nothing else to watch, but I would watch it just it's lighthearted. Sometimes you need the lighthearted bubblegum type stuff, don't you?
That's why I watch anime. Although I will say, and you disagreed with me before we started recording, I will come back and watch this series when they bring Jensen Ackles in as some kind of random guest star, because I'd be willing to bet just about anything that is going to happen. The show films in the same city where him and Jared live. So even if he is filming The Boys, it would be much easier for him to make his way to set in Austin, Texas, versus him having to get to Vancouver to film anything.
I hope they don't do that.
It's happening. It's happening at some point. He's probably going to play some other type of law enforcement, not necessarily
It'd be so
a ranger.
cheesy.
Of course it's going to be cheesy. It's a CW. They're going to do it. I just know that.
No, but just don't do it. Don't take the obvious money.
They're doing it.
Do you know what? I could see them doing it for the ratings, because the ratings won't be as strong as Supernatural. And I'm willing to bet he took a pay cut to do this, but I would think Texas Walker show, it's just called Walker. I think it would have been actually a much stronger show, probably on another network. The CW does tend to tone a lot of stuff down.
Yeah, I think another network, like a major network, like an ABC or an NBC or a CBS, would have been able to handle the content a little bit better just because they have more resources than the CW. And that's what makes me nervous about the show. Like, they've already jumped into a very serious, very kind of current matter.
So what do you reckon? 1 season, 2 seasons? I don't think it's going to go on that long.
I know it's not going to be very long. It's going to get a second season just because this is CW. But I don't see it going too much further. Not unless they can make this work. Because again, it's you say it's lighthearted. It's lighthearted now because they haven't gotten to the cartel stuff. But I think if they do, because it's, I get the impression that whatever his wife was doing, it interfered with whatever the cartels are doing. Now they said something about her leaving water in the desert. So my beef with that is Austin is in the middle of the state. There is no desert anywhere near Austin. So if she's leaving water in the desert, she would have to have driven at least 10 hours to get to a place that is close to the Mexican border. Like, Austin is nowhere near the border.
So he would have never made it then if he was getting into the car. Like, I mean, it was almost pointless.
I think he just went outside to give himself some distance from his kids. In case something had happened. So I'm not 100% sure about that. I thought that I heard them say she was supposed to be leaving water in the desert, and I'm assuming you're leaving water in the desert for the people that are illegally crossing the border. That's my guess. I'm saying is, geographically, Austin is hundreds and hundreds of miles away from the border. So she would have to have, after she left him, she would have to have been driving for 6 to 8 hours easy to get anywhere near where you would find people that are crossing the border. Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens. I can't see it going on more than 2 seasons, but then, like you say, the CW, though, can sometimes renew shows that are questionable.
But don't underestimate the Supernatural fandom. Even if they don't like the show, they'll support Jared.
Yeah. So. I think maybe it'd be interesting to see what the ratings look like over the next couple of episodes. Might have to actually just keep an eye on that. But, yeah. All right. Well, we gave this a 2.5 out of 5. I think we felt it was okay, but it could do better. Right.
Yeah, it needs some work. I think they have got to do something about the pacing. They're moving too fast, but it's to their detriment. So they got to slow it down, and if they're going to slow it down, they're going to have to do better with the storytelling in order to get the pacing under control. So we'll see. Like, I have no plans to continue until Jensen Ackles makes his guest appearance. Other than that, this show is honestly, other than Lindsay Morgan, is pretty much very forgettable to me.
I will watch a few more episodes. Like, I do want to know more. We'll see. Like, yeah, I don't know.
The only other thing I might watch for is just because, like I said, I spent 4.5 years in the city of Austin, so it's nice to be like, oh, I know that. I've been there.
I'll tell you what you should watch though is the 100. Like, honestly, Lindsay Morgan, like, it's just so good. She actually, when I watched the 100, because she obviously wasn't the star of the show, but she was like one of the co-stars. I constantly wanted her to get more screen time. She actually was probably one of the best characters in the 100. Yeah, I enjoyed her in that. But anyway, as we start to bring the show to a close, we'd like to finish with a couple of recommendations of our own. I'm going to give you a quick, short and sweet recommendation for this week's King in Black issue 3, which is pretty much a fight between Null and Thor. It's amazing visually, and it's not going to change your life, but if you want to see Thor beat the crap out of Null and Null try and beat the crap out of Thor, it's brilliant. So art was amazing, and hands down, it was just brilliant. So Ryan Stegman did a really good job, and I equally enjoyed the other. There was a couple of King in Black spin-off thingies and tie-ins that came out. I picked up as well Black Cat issue 2, which was a heist caper set in the current climate.
I love a good heist.
Well, so if you want to know more, what it is Black Cat gets told to go and save Doctor Strange from a prison that Null has built, and she gets this anti-venom symbiote to wear, like, and she breaks into this sort of Null prison to rescue Doctor Strange. So I'm not reading any of the other spin-offs or tie-ins or anything like that, but I was quite intrigued, so I picked up a second issue of Black Cat as well. So but yeah, those are my recommendations. Black Cat King in Black is a really good event. I'm quite pleased with
we
it.
enjoyed the first one. We reviewed the first book in that mini series a few episodes ago. And my recommendation is a new anime, surprise, on Funimation. It is called Sk8 the Infinity. It is about skater boys. It is really bright, really colorful. It is a lot of fun. It's basically like Mad Max, but on skateboards. So I've been enjoying the dynamic so far. One of the funny things to me is there's a transfer student in they're in, I want to say, Okinawa or Osaka. They're not in like Tokyo. They're quite a ways away from Tokyo. But the transfer student is from Canada, and everybody keeps calling him American, and he's like, no, I'm Canadian, and they're like, it's the same thing. And I'm like, oh, poor Canadian. You definitely don't want to be lumped into the same group as us. So anyway, I'm definitely enjoying Sk8 the Infinity. If you have your Funimation subscription, you should check that out.
Next week on Geeks Unleashed, we are launching a new feature, which we will do on the last podcast of every month, which is something we've decided to nickname Pilot Season. So next week, we will be reviewing the pilot of Dexter, the first episode of season 1. And sort of the theme is the last week of every month, we will pick a series that's quite well known, things like Dexter, things like True Blood.
But Dexter is timely because they're supposed to be doing that 9th season.
That's why we decided to go with Dexter for our first one. And we will also be reviewing Greenland, which is a recent movie that came out a couple of weeks ago.
And as a reminder, we also started a second podcast series where we tackle some of the most essential graphic novels of all time. Our 4th Late to the Party book club episode was Monstrous Awakening Volume 1, which is written by Marjorie Liu and drawn by Sana Takeda. That episode dropped at the beginning of January, so be sure to check that out. Our guest for that episode was author Allie Burke. Our next graphic novel for the month of February is going to be March Volume 1, by Andrew Iden and John Lewis, former late House Representatives rep, John Lewis. So be sure to tune in for that one.
Also, just to remind you that we finally, after a technical, we were meant to do it 2 weeks ago, but we had a technical issue. So this week we live streamed on YouTube our Wonder Woman 1984 review. It was our first live stream. And next week on Tuesday again, we'll be live streaming Man of Steel. So we're going to start from the very beginning for the DCEU.
Yes, we're doing the whole DCEU as a lead up into the 4-hour Snyder Cut Justice League,
which is meant to come out in March.
Yes.
I can't remember the exact date, but in March.
So stick with us.
And you can also follow us on social media. We're Geeks Unleashed on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And personally, I am Mark Brassington on Twitter as well. I sound it out like that because otherwise people always go, how do you spell that? So,
you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Fiore Bianca. And you can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts: Google, Podbean, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. We are everywhere. So be sure to give us a 5-star review and tell your geeky friends.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers for listening.
Bye.